Hello, and welcome to IVAC's second annual May Week events. I am Lavana Asbell, president of the Indelible Inland Valley Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Today's topic is very timely in recognition of May Mental Health Month. We have a phenomenal presentation by Kim Fuller, CEO of Fuller Life Concepts, Inc., speaking on the dynamics of mental health, how to recognize it, and providing resources. Soror Fuller will join us live in the chat during and after the presentation to answer any questions. We hope this presentation is beneficial to you and our community, as the topic is impacting humanity across the globe. Continue to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Check our website, ivacdst.org, for more information. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to Our Mental Health Matters. This is May Week of Mental Health Awareness Month and a presentation by Kim Fuller, licensed marriage and family therapist with the Inland Valley Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And we're happy to have you here. So our learning objectives, or what we really are going to discuss today, is what is mental health? How do you identify it? When is it important to seek professional help, and what type of support is available to you? I'm Kim Fuller, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm happy to be here with you. I am the owner and founder of Fuller Life Concepts. It is a mental health and wellness agency, and we provide individual, family, and couple sessions to residents in Long Beach and LA areas. And because of the internet and being able to do virtual sessions, we now have spread across the whole state of California. We specialize in working with anxiety and depressions, and we focus mainly on teens and children. But over the past couple of years, we have spent more time doing couples and families. I started off in nonprofit mental health, and I worked in some of the largest agencies in LA. And when I ended my nonprofit agency practices, I was director of outpatient services. So I've been in the field more than 25 years, and I started Fuller Life Concepts back in 2011. And it has been a pleasure to be of service to the community. So let's start off by defining what is mental health. So mental health is your emotional, psychological, and social well-being, or basically how you think, feel, and interact with others. It's also, how do you manage stress? How do you manage relationships with others? How you make choices in the world? That's overarching what exactly mental health is. And it's important that you have a sense of balance so that you can be productive in society, so that you can have loving, healthy relationships, so that you can make choices that really benefit who you are and how you are in the world. When there is an imbalance or mental health challenges, those get all thrown off. And then you find yourself having lots of conflict with others, also having trouble with daily interactions, finishing projects, being productive, making good choices that help you to live the life that you deserve. That's what imbalance is. And so mental health is really looking at, how do you think, how do you feel, and how does that impact how you are with others and how productive you are in the world. So having a mental health concern or being imbalanced is really common. And studies have found 1 in 5 adults have had a mental health imbalance in the past year. 1 in 5, that's really common. And I bring that statistic up, one, to make you realize that, it happens to all of us at some time or another. And for you to recognize that even though it happens to all of us, it doesn't mean it has to be that way. There are things that we can do to address it. So there are a wide range of conditions that affect your mood, your thinking, and your behavior. And we call these mental health conditions. I'm going to talk through a few of the most common ones that we address in mental health sessions. The first is clinical depression, and that is a pervasive low or sad mood, right? It is impacting your daily functioning, your trouble getting out of bed, trouble going to sleep, trouble staying awake, always feeling sad, moody, low, hopeless, helpless. That's clinical depression. And it becomes a mental health concern or condition when it's impacting your daily life, when it's impacting how you are with others, relationships, school, work, when it impacts your ability to do those kind of activities that you used to enjoy. That's when we consider it a clinical depression. Another is anxiety disorder, and that is this overwhelming, overarching fear, right? Fear so much that you avoid certain situations or conditions, right? That could be an emotional fear, right? Fear of rejection or humiliation. So you avoid getting into relationships or maybe doing activities at work because you don't want to be humiliated. And that's fear because it's impacting your daily functioning or something that you want to do. It could also be fear of things, right? Fear of dogs or water or swimming, and those kind of fears that keep you from doing some activities that you probably would enjoy. That's what we call anxiety. And so anxiety could be specific to a thing or a situation, or it can be generalized or overarching anxiety, like refusal to go into crowds or go to work or go to school. So those are anxiety disorders, right? So these are activities that interfere with your daily functioning or things that you might otherwise wanted to enjoy. Then there's the bipolar disorder, and that is when there is a high or a low. High we call mania, low we call depression. And those two come and go quickly. That could be within days, weeks, months, but you find yourself going through these highs and these lows. High mania would be when you're feeling a sense of grandiosity, right? When you feel or experience that you're larger than life. You make decisions that are outside of the way you normally would be, right? Maybe make large purchases that are impulsive. Depression, you might want to feel like you can't get out of bed, or you want to hurt yourself because you just can't seem to feel like you're ever going to feel better. And bipolar is when you have the highs and the lows at times that are kind of cyclical. And it's really overwhelming and really impacts your daily functioning. And you'll hear me say that over and over again, because that's when it's a mental health condition, when it impacts your daily functioning, right? How you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what you're doing. Another area is dementia. And dementia is around a group of thinking and social symptoms, right? And you probably have heard people talk about dementia in terms of older adults, but dementia can happen in any of those phases of life. And it's important that you know when you're having some type of social, cognitive, I can't kind of think, it's not kind of, things don't feel right, that could be in dementia. Another is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as ADHD. And that is when there is a hyperactivity, right? Lots of activity, kind of, we imagine a kid kind of not being able to sit still, fidgety. That would be the hyperactivity. But there's also the attention deficit, right? Where you're having trouble with focus and attention. Those two can happen at the same time, right? Or you can have one at one time, one at the other. The thing about ADHD in children and adults is that it's not just you're a hyper person. It's not just that you're trouble focusing, but it's that the hyperactivity and the ability to struggle with attention, that it impacts your daily functioning. And for ADHD to be diagnosed, it has to occur in more than one scenario environment. So for a child, yes, it may occur in school, but it also has to occur, like maybe say an after school activity, at church, at their school functions, at sports. So it really needs to be seen in more than one environment. And that's when you know it's impacting your daily functioning. Another is obsessive compulsive disorder, otherwise known as OCD. And obsessive compulsive disorders, when you're having these excessive thoughts, right? Excessive, like thoughts that go in your mind over and over and over and over again. And then you have a behavior that is a compulsion, right? You think that the behavior is going to get you to stop having that obsessive, excessive thoughts. So, for example, turning off the stove. You may constantly worry, did I turn off the stove? Did I turn off the stove? And that thought goes through your head over and over and over again. So you think, oh, you know how I'm going to get that thought to go away? I'm going to go over to the stove and make sure it's off. And when you go to the stove and you make sure it's off, it didn't stop the thought. So then you go and you make sure it's off again because it didn't stop the thought. And I'm making it real simplistic so to easier convey it to you. However, that is kind of the cycle that someone with OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder gets caught up in. Another is schizophrenia, right? And that's really when we talk about having a lack of contact with like reality. It really impacts the way you think and feel and behave and the clarity of those thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? It could be hallucinations or delusions, but it's really struggling with like reality, and that's schizophrenia. Another is post-traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD. Post-traumatic. So that means after something traumatic happened, now you're having this stress disorder, right? This anxiety disorder. And put it all together, it's the response to something that you experienced, perceived, or witnessed that was life altering, almost to the point of thinking something would be a terrifying or deadly event. So it could be something that happened to you directly. It could be something you witnessed or seen, that is, or experience, or something that you heard of from someone else. And the action and reaction is that now you're having trouble in life. You're having dreams about it, or you're trying to avoid thinking about it. It's changing the way you felt comfortable in your body or in the world. And that's when it's post-traumatic stress disorder. So now we just reviewed about 7 of. So here are 2 that I really appreciate. One is acknowledging your feelings. So becoming aware of how you feel, knowing how you feel today versus how you felt yesterday, being able to know on a scale, today I feel, discouraged or frustrated on a level of 2. Yesterday it was a level of 1. So now you realize I'm starting to get more frustrated. What is that about? And be curious. Once you kind of begin to acknowledge your feelings, then you need to be sure you stay connected to other people. One, you need to be able to acknowledge, measure, and even regulate, like what can I do to feel better? But then you also need to stay connected to other people. Share how you're feeling with someone you trust and care about. The problem with mental health is that we keep it inside, kind of like, something in the back of the fridge or in the back of the cabinet, right? What happens to that when you ignore it? It molds and it festers and it gets nasty and gross. Imagine your mental health is the same. If you keep it inside in the dark places of your being and you don't share it, then it becomes to fester and get gross and moldy. And you can impact that proactively by talking about it with someone you love and care about. Brene Brown is um, she studies shame. And one of the things she talks about is shame lives in the shadows, right? Once you start to talk about your feelings of shame or any kind of mental health disorder, you realize that it's no longer in the shadows and now it can be addressed. So another way to positively impact your mental health is exercise. So also having some coping skills. Um, and here are 3 that I think are easy to access, and they have a great impact on elevating your mood, helping you to regulate and also feel calm and more happy. And the first is taking deep breaths, right? Because that balances your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. Just taking deep breaths. I often ask my clients to do 5, 6, 7. And that is inhale for 5 counts, hold it for 6, or exhale for 7. Another, excuse me, is to embrace the 5 senses. And what I mean by that is that makes you be in the present and in the current moment. And that is having things around you that touch on senses that are stimulating for you. For example, having things to look at that make you feel really good and comfortable. having something that you touch that is stimulating. Maybe soft feels good, maybe rough feels good. Certain smells, so maybe you might have scents or candles around you that help you to feel good. Certain things that you eat and drink. Nutrition is directly impacts your overall mental well-being. So eating nutritious foods and eating things that taste good or feel good in your mouth, right? Having sounds that are relaxing, sometimes just melodic music, sometimes water. You have to find what works for you. So that's embracing the five senses. And also, once again, staying in touch with your thoughts and feelings. So maybe journaling, maybe doing videos. I do have some clients where I said, if you're not really good at writing, maybe you might want to do short videos, and each day just record yourself about how you felt, what did you do today, and then kind of watch it over a couple of days and see if you can notice changes. And then that can inform you about whether or not you're doing really well that particular day, or not. And so these are some coping skills that you can develop and you can implement starting today. So now that I gave you a lot of information around mental health conditions and ways to cope, you're probably wondering, when is it that I need to go and seek professional help? When do you need to go and figure out someone else needs to help you? Because all of the other coping skills that I just showed you, right? You're like, oh, Kim gave me some breathing tips and some other journaling ideas. You'll know it's time to seek professional help when, one, you're ready to talk to other people. Remember, because you've been practicing talking about your feelings with other people. And two, when you realize it's not getting better. When you start to realize, oh, my symptoms and my problems, my interactions with others, my ability to do my job, my productivity, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. That's when you need to seek professional help. So here are a few signs and symptoms that you can look at to say, oh, okay, now it's time for me to go get help for myself or someone else that I care about. So if you have significant changes in sleeping or eating more, eating less, sleeping more, sleeping less, and over a course of some time, you realize that those are getting more and more different from how you think it should be. So, for example, I typically sleep 6 to 7 hours a night. Sometimes I get 8. But if I notice I'm sleeping only like 3 hours and I'm always getting up and I'm always tired and I can't stay asleep longer than 3 hours, that's a problem. If I find myself all of a sudden getting 10, 12, always taking naps over and above what was normal, that's a problem. If you always have low energy, that is the most obvious and frequent symptom that clients come to is low energy. I just don't have energy. And, for a long time, we deal with that. We think that that's normal and ordinary to have low energy. It is not. That is a symptom. That is a symptom of something is going wrong and there's an imbalance in your mental health. It can come from so many different ways, and that's why you go and seek a professional, right? To talk through what is causing this low energy. But that's a symptom. And if you've ever had one of those, it's important to address it. Feeling unusually confused or on edge, right? And that's where you have the tense or always confused, or, somebody says something to you and now you're crying all of a sudden, or you're angry all of a sudden. It's time to seek some professional help. Have you ever heard things that other people don't hear? See things that other people don't see? Start to believe things that are not true? It's time to seek mental health. And if any of these symptoms that we've talked about so far impact your ability to perform in the way you're used to, daily tasks, getting up, getting dressed, having fun with others, activities, if it's impacting those kind of things that you're used to doing, then it's time to get mental health help. And just go out and seek a professional. So now that you decided that it's time for you to seek mental health support, what kind of types of support is available? And the great thing is that it has gotten more easy to access mental health support than ever. So some of the options available when you need mental health support are the traditional inpatient, and that is when you go into a hospital or facility. And that can be for because you walk in because you realize you need it, or that can be involuntary. And involuntary just means somebody else made the decision for you. And either way, it is a more intense type of support. And if you need that, you should go and get it. Another is medication. I know a lot of people shy away from medication, but it is a great support. It's a great tool that it can help you get more balanced, right? Because mental health, when you have problems, it's all about being imbalanced. Medication can help balance you chemically. Then there's also the traditional therapy and counseling, and that is when you're doing more talk. There's a lot more than just talk, and I'll share that in just a moment. And then there's also support groups. And support groups are great because it is when a group of people who have a similar challenge or problem, you get together with a therapist facilitator and you talk through options, interventions, coping. And the cool thing about support groups is the person next to you has had a similar experience and they can call you out when you're avoiding or hiding. So support groups are great tools to help with mental health. Because of the way in which technology is available to us, in person is, of course, the most traditional way to get mental health, right? Going to an office or an agency or someone coming to your home. But now, because of technology, we also have video conferencing, you have text messaging, you have talking to someone on the phone or even email. So access to mental health services is easier than ever. And the wonderful thing is we can mix and match all of these different options to see what best serves you. Maybe you go to an in-person therapy session and you do a video group, support group. Maybe you are getting medication and you're also doing video conferencing with your therapist. I mean, we can mix and match to see what works for you. And I think it's individualized and should be personal to your challenges and to your style, your lifestyle, your where you live in the country, all of those elements. So when it comes to therapy and counseling, there are a lot of different modalities, right? There are a lot of different treatment options. So you talk directly with your provider, talk about what are your symptoms, what are your signs, what are your challenges, and what are your goals. And then they can determine whether you do something like art therapy or exercise therapy or traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, or whether, so it becomes more expansive, and your access to all these options are even greater. So there are So, of course, there are virtual and online support resources as well. So, Talkspace and BetterHelp, you probably have heard some advertisements for those, and they are services that are online therapy services where you get connected with a professional, usually within 24, 48 hours, and you can do all of your sessions virtually. Alma and Lyra also offer virtual sessions. Oftentimes, you have to go through your employer or your insurance in order to get those. But these are all mental health professionals who would do it through some kind of virtual platform in order to help you. And that again creates easy access where you can just pick up your cell phone, open up your laptop or your computer, and have a professional help you manage life right there at your fingertips. So another option in terms of finding mental health support would be to contact your medical insurance, because oftentimes there is your full scope medical insurance may include behavioral health services. So is what you would need to ask for or look for. Do you have behavioral health services, and how much do they cover? They can cover a percentage. They may cover a certain number of sessions. So that would be the first step, is contact your medical insurance and find out. Another is Psychology Today. That is a resource that allows you to pick your provider based on whatever demographics or characteristics, right? So you can go on Psychology Today. You can find someone in your area. So there's geography connected to it. And that's because mental health professionals are usually licensed by state. So you want to find somebody in the state in which you live in. And then you can choose gender, you can choose ethnic background. You can choose language. You can choose whatever their specialty is, the type of therapy they perform. There are lots of characteristics and demographics that we put in our Psychology Today profile so that you can pick and choose someone who is going to meet your needs, because it's a very personal and intimate relationship. You want somebody who you feel is going to connect with you and understand you. Then there's Open Path Collective, which I know here in the state of California, that is a free option. They give you a certain number of sessions depending on what is happening, and there might be some economic or financial resources that you have to connect with in order to get the free service. But I strongly recommend you look at Open Path Collective, especially if you don't have it on your medical insurance and can't afford full out-of-pocket pay. Then there's also EAP, otherwise known as Employee Assistance Program, and that is where you can get mental health services paid for by your employer. And they have a lot of options if that is one of the benefits that you have as an employee of a particular agency. And you would just contact Human Resources and ask about the EAP services, and then look and see if behavioral or mental health is included. And often they give you 5 to 8 sessions, which is a great amount of sessions to really address some needs and get you some coping skills right away. And then I don't want to end any of this discussion without talking about suicide and suicide prevention and hotlines, right? So suicide has increased in our community. It has increased in our young children, especially black and brown skin children. There's lots of reasons for why suicide is increasing, but suicide is permanent, right? We can't come back from that. And so we want to do everything we can to prevent and support. So if anybody is talking to you, or you're feeling like helpless or hopeless to the point you just don't want to be here anymore, you don't feel like you could cope any longer, there's a suicide hotline where you can get instant help, right? 1-800-273-8255. And they've even used technology to make it easier to get support, and that is texting. So you can text 741-741 and have a professional suicide prevention person at the other end of that text message that can help you manage your feelings at the moment and get you safe. Because it's all about creating safety for you or your loved one instantly. And then we can provide interventions that are for longer term to help you to manage whatever is the problem that's causing you to feel so hopeless and helpless that you think taking your life is the only option, because it's not. But at that moment, you can't see that there are other options. So that's why we have these text options and phone options right at your fingertips. So please don't hesitate to reach out whenever you're feeling helpless or hopeless to the point you just don't want to deal anymore. We care, and we're here for you. So here's my contact information. Kim Fuller, licensed marriage and family therapist, and my agency is Fuller Life Concepts. Our phone number is 323-334-0064, and it's a private confidential voicemail. When someone answers, it is a clinical integrator, and she's also a licensed therapist, and she can help direct you whether it's something that you can use for here in California and you want our services, and also direct you in terms of what to do next. You can also send an email directly to kfuller@fullerlifeconcepts.com. It's been a pleasure to be with you here today and share this information. I'm really passionate about us having a really robust mental health and life experience, having quality connections with others, having more happy days than sad or angry, and also being more productive in the world. So it's been a pleasure serving you, and thank you for joining.